The season's over. All right, cool. Let's talk
Burn
Utah
it
Utes
to the
football.
ground.
Right? We don't have to talk about let's talk BYU football. Because I was amazed. Sunday mornings usually are awesome or terrible on Twitter. And with this loss, right? I mean, seriously, with this loss to Boise State, you kind of had the idea that this was going to be a rough Sunday morning. And sure enough, you wake up with almost 100 Twitter notifications.
I'll try to stay calm and not curse.
Well, and the thing is, everybody's like, oh, the season's over. Playing out the string. Worst case scenario, we lost and Utah won. And it's like, bros, really? Is that where this team is? You are 5-1. You have good wins on your schedule. You have good wins coming up on your schedule potentially. The season is far from over. And I guess, Jake, this is the philosophical question that we have to ask and answer today. Did the loss to Boise State, who you tip your cap to, by the way, they came out, they made plays, caused turnovers. BYU did not. Boise State had a quarterback that was capable of, quarterbacking. BYU did not.
Mm-hmm.
BYU lost this game. Boise won this game. Is the season over for BYU?
So I don't think the season's over. I do understand why people are going to go ahead and say, well, our hope of getting to the college football playoff is pretty much dead. And I largely agree with that. I think you're going to need help to get in the college football playoff now rather than it being in your control. Now, I think some of the things that are helping you is the fact that Alabama lost, right? You have several good teams this week who lost. So that's definitely helping you. But I think the problem here is that teams like Alabama and Georgia and all these teams that we're constantly hearing about every single year, they have a lot of weight behind them with the committee. They have they have a reputation about them with the committee, and I think that BYU doesn't have that right now. And so, if you're a BYU fan, you're like, damn, we just lost to Boise State, like at home, at Lavelle. Like, how did that happen? It feels like our season just ended. And I get why you're feeling that way. Now, on the other side of the coin, I guess, what the silver lining would be that, yes, you are 5-1. Yes, you are still going to go to a major bowl. I don't think anybody doubts that. But I just think that there was so much hype around getting to the college football playoff, your last couple of years of independence here, really making, a lot of noise. And I think that's just hard for people to take. But I think the issue that really I think should be upsetting you is not the loss. It's not the fact that you have a 1 in the loss column that should be upsetting you. To me, what should be upsetting is how the quarterback situation was handled and the choices that were made. We were obviously following who was starting this game and, right up to it. And then you hear that Jaren's going to play and he's going to start the game. And you just start to wonder, okay, well, so what you're saying is that you have more, what you're saying is you have more trust in a, I don't know, let's be nice, a 70% Jaren Hall rather than 100% Conover.
In a guy in a huge game who's not 100%. You have more trust in him. And I think this is a huge conversation this morning. And as a BYU fan, this is one that you need to think about very seriously. Was it a mistake to have Jaren Hall on the field Saturday? There's no question it was. We told you all week long, our sources in the program told us that Jaren Hall had a lack of arm strength early in the week, that he did not have full mobility, that they were not comfortable with him taking any kind of big shot, and yet they played him anyway. And very clearly, Jaren Hall, I think, ran 6 times for -3 yards total. This was a mistake. He was not prepared, nor was he ready to play. He threw the ball just fine. But what you saw was a kid that was out there playing careful, and he was not prepared to play this game. He physically was not capable of playing this game. And what this tells you is exactly what you, Jake, tweeted on Saturday. BYU does not believe in Jacob Conover. They do not believe that Conover was ready to go, and that's why Jaren Hall was in the game. It was that simple.
Yeah.
And this was a huge mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit surprising to me that Kalani and the coaching staff decided to go with somebody who who, and again, I don't know. I don't have the privilege to go to practice every day or to see Jaren up close or to kind of really measure where he's at. But needless to say, if we're being nice, let's just say he's 80%. If we're being nice, maybe it's less than that, but
no,
let's
he was not 80%. I'm telling you,
okay,
he was 60%.
60?
He was able to throw the ball, and that was it.
Okay, 50 or 60%. Let's throw it in that realm. All I'm saying is that I just found it really surprising that they decided to go that route. And I think, really, if you read between the lines based on what our sources were telling us and based on what ended up happening, to me, what this screams is, hey, Conover had a nice week of practice, but he's still a young guy. He's unproven, highly recruited, but unproven. And this was a big game, and I want to go with a veteran. That's what I feel like Kalani said. And I felt like BYU thought that they were going to come into this game, that they were gonna scheme to keep Jaren from running. They were going to keep him in the pocket and try to, basically overcome his shortcomings due to injury. And they thought that would be enough. And what I'm telling you is Jaren wasn't even really the reason you lost the game. And this is what happens in sports. When you're so focused on one portion of the game, you have a lack of discipline in other areas of the game, meaning Peeney fumbling once or twice. You've got Algier fumbling, super uncharacteristic of Tyler Algier to fumble the football. This game was like Jaren wasn't even the issue, I felt like. Yes, did he help? Not really. But fumbling and all these mistakes and all the things that they did to hurt themselves is why you lost the game.
I totally disagree. I think you lost the game because you started Jaren Hall. You didn't have a chance to win this game. And I know that these are college kids and they're amateurs, and we can't blame the kids. Well, you know what? Actually, I'm not blaming the kids. I'm blaming the coaches because this was a mistake to play Jaren Hall. He was incredibly limited, and let's just be honest. Let's be brutally honest about who Jaren Hall is as a quarterback. This is a guy who, if he doesn't have his legs and he's not running, and if the RPO is not a serious threat, he is a very, very average football player, especially at the quarterback position. I'm telling you, he is not a guy you want sitting in the pocket, diagnosing a defense, throwing the football. That's not his highest, best use. And that may be Baylor Romney's highest, best use, but that certainly is not what is best for Jaren Hall. It's just this kid needs to be able to run. We saw it multiple times against Utah and ASU where he broke their backs with big runs. He was never going to do that on Saturday against Boise State.
Well, what do those big runs do for him? And I think this is super important because it plays to why I disagree with the decision to start him. Jaren being able to run opens up the pass game for him as a player, right? Like if you look at Baylor Romney is a guy who can diagnose the defense and place the ball wherever he wants on the field due to the fact that he has a huge arm. Jaren does not have that huge arm, right? Let's just assume that Jaren's 100% walking into any game, right? What has to happen for Jaren Hall to be successful? Jaren Hall has to gain the defense's respect by running the football and showing that he is a legit dual threat guy that you got to constantly be spying. Once that happens, then the passing game opens up. So the idea that you would start this guy at 50%, let's say, or 60%, knowing that he can't throw the football, knowing that he can't run the football, is beyond me.
But see, he threw the ball well. And again, not to say you're wrong, I completely disagree with you. Jaren Hall running the football does one thing and one thing only. It brings everybody closer to the line of scrimmage. This is why I have said all season long, Baylor Romney's your best option. But when Jaren Hall's in the game, the thing that makes him so different is the underneath passing game, right? That's the difference maker. Because if you look at Tyler Algier, when has he had his biggest games? When Jaren Hall's not the quarterback. That's when he's had his biggest games. Because when you have a guy like Baylor Romney in the game who can take the top off of the defense, who has a cannon for an arm, you can't have 7, 8, 9 guys in the box. You can't have. And what did we see against Jaren Hall? I tweeted pictures of this. Go back and look at it. The safeties never respected the deep ball against Jaren Hall because I'm telling you, it's just not who he is as a quarterback. He cannot beat you, Jaren Hall, if he is simply standing in the pocket running the ball. And the thing that his run game brings is it just brings more space underneath because you got to have more guys down on the line of scrimmage. But Jaren Hall's not a guy that's going to throw the ball over the top and beat you. That's Baylor Romney. Jaren Hall's highest best use is the RPO, using a guy like Tyler Algier to run the football, to create opportunities for Jaren Hall underneath. The play action is Jaren Hall's best friend. I would also tell you, by the way, it's every quarterback's best friend, but he especially needs it. And again, I just want to emphasize this. It is not Jaren Hall's fault he was on the field. He is going to play when you allow him to play. He had no business being the starting quarterback for BYU on Saturday against Boise State. None. He did not even really attempt to run because his ribs are not healthy. I've told you this for 2 weeks, and everybody that wants to tell me, hey, you don't have sources, you're wrong. Like, go back and look at the last 2 weeks of YouTube comments. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Wrong. Okay, well, tell me what I told you, and I'll repeat it for you in case you didn't hear it. That this kid had limited mobility. They did not feel comfortable having him on the field 2 weeks ago at Utah State because they did not want him to take a hit because his ribs were an issue. And his ribs are still an issue. And now this week, this shoulder injury crept into the conversation where he wasn't able to, until Thursday, really propel the ball with any kind of force down the field. And you played him anyway. And in my opinion, you did this kid a disservice. And I've rarely said this about Kalani Sitake. I've rarely ever criticized Kalani because I think he truly is one of the best coaches in the country. Kalani Sitake, you did Jaren Hall a disservice by playing him this week against Boise State. This should have been the Jacob Conover start from day one. I said that last Friday. I'll say it again Monday. I said it all last week, and I'm going to say it again today. Jacob Conover should have gotten the start against Boise State. The BYU coaching staff did Jaren Hall a significant disservice by playing him against Boise because he wasn't himself. He was not able to play his game. And furthermore, I'll also say this. No, the season did not come to an end. When you have the schedule that BYU has, and if you look at what is left for BYU to play for, this is the exact same conversation we had about Utah last week. You knew you were heading to the Coliseum, and we'll get into that game in a minute, by the way. But if you look at what BYU has left on their schedule, you're going to Baylor, you're going to Washington State. 2 road games against 2 teams that are P5s. Baylor's well-respected. Dick Rolovich in Pullman is not well-respected. They're not a great football team, but it's on the road in the Pac-12. Those are 2 good wins. Then you take a gaunt back home, and you're like, okay, now it's Virginia. Virginia's a really, really important game now because you should win these next 2 games. There's no question in my mind that you should win these next 2 games. When you come back home for Virginia in 3 weeks, that's a must-win football game because that's a team that has played good football this year. Are they one of the top 5 teams in the country? No. But you can only play who's put in front of you. That's BYU's job. And their job currently is to go to Waco and beat David Koresh and the Baylor Bears. Okay, I feel better.
Do you feel better, dude? Like
I'm tired of being nice because it's BYU. I'm tired of, oh, well, Jaren, he did his best. Let's pray. No, we're not going to pray. He shouldn't have been on the field. If you want to grow as a football program, and you better embrace this as you get into the Big 12, because this is going to be a significant difference for you. You better be able to take some very critical retrospective looks at how you prepared for this Boise State game, because there were mistakes made. That much is very clear.
Yeah.
Is that BYU made mistakes in preparation for this game, and I don't know what you did not see from Jacob Conover that you thought Jaren Hall should be the starting quarterback. I am stunned. And this is why I didn't tweet much Saturday during the game. I was really frustrated watching that game because it's not Jaren Hall's fault. It's not his fault. He should not have been out there. And I don't mean to be redundant, and I know I just spent 10 minutes rolling on this, but I'm telling you that if a kid has only half of his skill set available to him and you lose, is that his fault or your fault? Because Jaren Hall took an ass whooping on Twitter. His deep throwing, his passing wasn't the issue. The problem is that's his best passing. He's not a gifted thrower of the football.
Yeah, his passing is an issue overall, though, because he's not a gifted thrower of the football. That's the problem, right? That's what I think That's what my issue is. Like, I love Jaren. I love the dual threat dynamic. I love what they can do. But the fact is that when you have a guy in Baylor Romney, not that he was available, but when you have that option as a football team, you're going to play him. And so the idea that you rolled into this game and you're like, well, a half healthy Jaren is better than a full healthy Conover, is like, I don't know. It's kind of beyond me, dude. Like, I feel like if you're, is it not a bigger risk to play a 50% Jaren Hall than it would be to play 100% Jacob Conover? Like, isn't that a bigger risk to play a guy who's hurt over someone who's healthy?
I think it is. I think, well, if Jaren Hall can't run, you don't want him as your starting quarterback. I mean, that is again, I know that's harsh, and sometimes people get upset when we criticize college kids. Well, guess what? They're professional athletes. If Jaren Hall can't use his legs, he is not a very good quarterback. He is strictly average. He's not a guy, with all due respect, if Jaren Hall is one-dimensional and is a pocket passer, I'm not that interested.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not. He is a guy that is dynamic because he has the ability to break you off with big runs. That's why he is. That's why he's dangerous. He threw the ball fine. I mean, listen, what was he? 22 of 37, 302, a touchdown and a pick. He was fine. The issue for me was obviously the turnovers. Tyler Algier had never lost a fumble. And then, Peeny, it's raining, it's wet, cool. So it was the same way for Boise. You play in the rain. It's Provo, Utah, man. The weather is always going to be a factor. But these turnovers, I think what you had on Saturday in Provo was a team that knew they had a wounded duck playing quarterback. And so guys were trying to do more than they should have been trying to do.
Yeah.
That's it. Ball security has never been an issue for a Kalani Sitake football team. They do not turn the ball over on a regular basis. They have not. And it's freakish. And it's because they were trying to do too much.
Yeah.
There is, and I know Kalani teaches this, when guys are holding you up, it is a skill to get to the ground as a running back. And when you're trying to do too much and you're fighting for extra yards, you're going to lose the football. And it's one of those things where if you watch the best offenses, they do not have running backs that are fighting for half an extra yard. Now, if you're third in inches and you're fighting for that first down, okay, I get that. But on the regular, that's just not not what smart football teams do. And that's not what Kalani teams have done. And Kalani teams have not turned the ball over. They're disciplined. They are a well-coached team. I think they knew that they had to do a little bit extra because you had a quarterback issue. That's very clear to me. And again, I see the comments and I see people, saying I'm being too hard. I don't believe that I am. I've covered football for 25, 30 years now. I know what I'm looking at. And I know that this is a situation with a quarterback who just physically was not capable of playing. And it is not Jaren Hall's fault that they lost this game. He did what he was asked to do. The fault lies in the coaching staff. Because all we've heard about, with all due respect, all we've heard about is Conover, stud, like, oh my God. Okay, well, where was he?
Yeah.
Where was he?
Great question.
If you're 3-4 quarterbacks deep and you're legitimately you are 3 quarterbacks deep, where's the third guy? Are you telling me that what you saw in Logan 2 weeks ago wasn't what you had expected? What did you expect to happen? That's what I just want to understand that. By the way, I understand he's been serving a mission for 2 years, and this is his first competitive football in 3 years. If he's not ready to go, why is he active?
Yeah.
This is why you recruit depth. Look at the situation at Utah. Their starting quarterback quit. And they have a guy who, by the way, played pretty well at the Coliseum on Saturday. They won a game in L.A. against USC for the first time in over 100 years with Cam Rising as their starting quarterback.
Pretty good.
You just don't – I'm frustrated about BYU. It's really unfortunate. This team should be 6-0. They are better than Boise State. Well, I thought they were better because they were not better Saturday.
Yeah, I just don't think that I think the game was over as soon as you decided to go that route with Jaren. And it's not an indictment on Jaren. It's not like he was 100% and played poorly, but I just think that with where the team is at, you weren't in a position to run him out there. And I really truly believe, like, we see this all the time in sports. Hey, we got an injury, we got to play a young guy. Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady is not where he is today unless Bledsoe gets hurt, right?
It's football. Football hurts.
It's
You're going to have injuries.
Up.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't understand. And I think you make a great point. If Conover is such a stud and you're so good at developing guys, where is he? Because he was the logical choice. I think that's a great point.
It's baffling. And nobody will ask Kalani that. Nobody will ask that.
Yeah.
Nobody will ask the critical question. And it's unfortunate that that's where we are with the BYU media, and I get that. BYU is very protective. They will limit you if you ask difficult questions. Totally get that. But to me, I look at you let him throw the ball 37 times. And by the way, I'd also remind you, you only gave Tyler Algier 19 carries.
Yeah.
Your quarterback cannot run, and you knew that going into this game.
Yeah.
You knew he was not going to run. You only gave your best running back and arguably one of the best running backs in the country 19 carries? Really? And by the way, I'd remind you, they only average 4.1 yards per carry. And go back, having looked at this game multiple times now, go back and look what the Boise State defense was doing. They were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage because they were not going to they were going to force Jaren Hall to beat him with his arm, and he couldn't do it.
And that should speak volumes to you as a BYU fan about where the genre of this game, like the vibe and the theme of this game. Like, hey, they clearly knew that Jaren wasn't healthy.
Yeah. All right, let's get some comments in here. Dane says, morning, boys. Tanner Plummer says, tough loss for BYU, but at least the Eagles won. Spencer says, hey, Utes rolled. I told you they were going to be in that game. And we're going to talk about Utah in a minute. Kate Christlieb says it's not over. Win out and New Year's 6 is still in the cards. Absolutely agree. Spencer Morgan says so much for 4 deep at quarterback. Well, I don't think anybody says they're 4 deep. I think everybody believes that Baylor, Jaren, and Conover are, those are 3 guys that up until this week, we all thought were ready to rock and roll as a number 1. Tanner says season isn't over, but unless Boise becomes good, BYU's New Year's 6 chances are shot. I just don't think that's the case. Obviously, strength of schedule is a problem. The Pac-12's a joke. And it is really unfortunate that, but again, Utah beat SC. That certainly helps.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if Utah would go on and win the conference. That would really help BYU. I look at Arizona. That's not going to help you at all. Arizona State needs to win games. Plain and simple. Arizona State needs to win games. And yet it'd be nice if USC, figured themselves out somehow. But that doesn't, with a rudderless ship, you don't have a head coach there. My guess is that's not going to change. And Keaton Slovis is not a good quarterback right now. He is not at all. BYU fan CJ says, no one had us 5-1 to this point. It's still a good season, and the only naysayers aren't fans of BYU. That's just not true.
Yeah.
Stop being a victim. And this is the other thing about BYU fans. You lost a game. Don't automatically play the victim cards. Everybody hates the Mormons, because that's just not the case. That's not. Yeah. This is a football issue. And the issue is, yes, you're still having an incredible season. You're going to go to Waco and you're going to win. And my guess is you're going to go to Washington State and you're going to win. And you're going to be 7-1. And you're going to come home and it's going to be the reunion with Bronco Mendenhall. And you better be unemotional about that. You better be unemotional about that. Celebrate him, in the run-up to the game, but when the ball goes up in the air, you need to go and pound Bronco's face into the turf, period. That is what it is.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing exciting about Bronco Mendenhall winning it at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Not a single thing. Greg Hawkins says, good day, gents. Go Utes. Okay. Mind Axiom says 2,500. Congrats. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, guys. Congratulations. Sean Mirzinski says thank you. CJ says no fumbles in the red zone, and we're talking about a game manager, Jaren, winning us the game today.
Yeah, I agree, but you did fumble.
And I don't think, yeah, possibly.
Listen, without the fumbles, they win the game. I don't think that's even in question.
No, I mean I think the number was 38 total yards for those two scores off the fumbles. Like, yeah, I mean, but here's the other thing. I did not love the play calling. Like we're watching this game come down the stretch, and I mean he had so many opportunities to run. Anyway. The blind swordsman DS says, "Oi, I don't want to hear about BYU. Haha, morning guys. Who has a better chance to win Rookie of the Year, Ben Simmons or Jared Butler?" Exactly. Brandon Whiteside says, "College football is lame. One loss and you're out unless you're Alabama."
Listen, man.
This year, I don't know that there's going to be many undefeated teams left. I mean, if you look at the scoreboard from the weekend, I mean, the wins and losses in the top 25, I mean, your nemesis now becomes Coastal Carolina, I guess, because they're 6-0, and what are they going to be, 12th in the country or whatever?
Yeah.
Cincinnati is proving to be legit, which is bad for USC because, again, I'll just reiterate, Luke Fickell's not leaving Cincinnati.
I just think, listen, man, I don't think your season came to an end, but I think your college football playoff aspirations did. I just don't see any way where the college football playoff is going to put a one-loss BYU team in above an SEC team or, any other major player.
I mean, if Alabama's a one-loss team, that's one of those teams. But I think when you look at, you have to believe that Alabama and Georgia are in. I mean,
I think we can all agree those are the two best teams in the country.
I don't know about Alabama. I still maintain that this is not, your grandpa's Nick Saban, Alabama Crimson Tide. At some point, all that graduation's got to hurt you. They're just not playing great football. And certainly on the defensive side of the ball, they're making so many mistakes. Anyway, the point is, I mean, you have a lot of teams that are going to lose. I can't, Cincinnati, I don't know. How much respect do you get for Cincinnati going undefeated when they don't have a legitimate opponent left on their schedule? I mean, they're UCF, Navy, Tulane, Tulsa, USF, SMU, and ECU.
Yeah, not great.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, is that a huge accomplishment?
I mean, an undefeated season is going to look really nice, against all these one-loss teams, but I agree their strength of schedule is not good.
And their best win's going to be against a mediocre Notre Dame team? I mean, and I'm a Notre Dame fan, and they're mediocre.
Is my problem. See, this is my problem with college football. I love the brand. I love the game. I love talking BYU and Utah and all this stuff. But the problem is there's no defined bar for success. And some people love that this is what we have to do every single season. But I don't particularly love it. I wish there was a bar, like a solid, black and white, yes or no. Hey, BYU, you have to go undefeated to get a spot in the college football playoff, right? Like, I wish it was just that simple. Or, hey, you have to have this or that to get there, because it is teams like Cincinnati that throw a loop. They wreck the whole conversation because they don't have a good schedule. So I just wish that in college football it was a little more straightforward, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. If they go undefeated, it's a different conversation. If they run the table and this is their one loss, it's a different conversation. And let's hope we get there. But you got to take it week by week. And then I look at what happened, with Utah, and this is just an unbelievable performance. And we asked the question on Friday on whether or not the emotion, of this Aaron Lowe murder and everything that you've been through in the last calendar year, would you be able to leverage that emotion? And very clearly they did. It is the inspiration that you get from a performance like this. I mean, it's so impressive to look at the numbers and see the way that, like Tavion Thomas. I'm telling you, that's my guy, dude.
Yeah.
I've said pretty much all year, Jake, that he's the best running back on this roster. And he's a guy in my mind that you want to be your number one if he wouldn't turn the football over. And what do you know? Tavion Thomas didn't. He ran 16 times for 113 yards and a score. I thought Cam Rising being 22 of 28, incredibly efficient. But again, I look at the wide receiver numbers, that you had 3 wide receivers leading you and then Dalton Kincaid and Brant, Keithy. I just think
it was a great performance all around.
It's exactly what this offense should have been from week one.
Yeah, and really, I think it's exactly what this program should be overall. I mean, you're talking about, essentially. I mean, what was it, 42-26 or whatever it was? I mean,
42-26. Yeah.
Yeah. So you essentially double up USC, and I think that is really impressive. And my biggest thing here is, where has this been? Where has it been? Where was it against BYU? Where was it against all these other teams? Because you can't tell me that it took somebody, all due respect to Aaron Lowe and that whole situation, you can't tell me that tragedy happens and all of a sudden you turn into a good football team. This has been here. It is a question of, like, why now is it just now coming out? And so,
because the wrong guy started at quarterback.
I guess. Right? I mean, that's where my mind takes me. But I'm also saying, okay, well, what changed? Was it just that the Aaron Lowe tragedy changed the whole dynamic of this program, that it brought the team together in a way where they were not together when, to your point, when Charlie Brewer was in the program? Because I could see that. Hey, we have a guy in Charlie Brewer who isn't, is by all due account is not some great leader and everything. He's kind of in it for him, which leads your football team to kind of be divided. And then you go and get your ass handed to you a couple times, and then he quits. And then Aaron Lowe happens, and then all this stuff happens. And it's like, okay, where do we go from here? We're going to SC. How do we do this? And so it just feels like one of these wins where they've turned a corner. And the only question left in my mind is, okay, let's do it again. Let's go kick somebody else's ass now, because that was fun.
Well, now you're going to host Arizona State in a game to decide who's got control of the South.
Yeah.
Because if Arizona State wins this game, they are in firm control of the Pac-12 South. And when you look at what's ahead for Utah, I mean, you're going to go – your toughest games clearly are at home, with the exception of Oregon State. And then you got to ask yourself, okay, well, when does Oregon State come back to earth?
Yeah.
Because they're leading the North right now at 2-1 and 4-2 overall. You're home for Arizona State, at Oregon State, UCLA at home, at Stanford, at Arizona, home for Oregon, and home for Colorado. And those are all games that, in my opinion, you should win.
Yeah.
You're better than Oregon State is. Can you go on the road to Corvallis and execute? That's a big question. And I think if you can get this kind of running performance, if you can get Tavion to run the football the way he did, there's no reason this team can't win the South. Because as Cam Rising continues to grow as a starting quarterback on this team and in this offense, you need ball control. Because the best way to develop a quarterback is to have a really good running game. Because if he's going to struggle, or if he's going to have off moments, you're going to need that running back core to come through. And again, I just think I look at the numbers in this win. And it's not that you put up 42 points. That's not, to me, the thing that stands out so much. I continue to say that when I look at Dalton Kincaid, I think this is your best weapon on offense.
Yeah.
And it was nice that you got the deep shot out of Theo Howard. That's always great to have. Dalton Kincaid, to me, now has become your most dangerous receiver. And I think Cam likes throwing him the football. I think they have chemistry. I would absolutely leverage that relationship. And Brant Keithy's going to find his. He always does. But you need one guy, and I'm telling you, it's Dalton Kincaid. He's got the size. He's got the route ability. I love that. I love that kid playing football. And I'm telling you, we need more Tavion Thomas.
Yeah.
We need that guy to not fumble the football, and we need him to run with authority. Because I think they're a better offense when he does, and I think he's a big part of why they won that game.
Yeah, and I think Utah is a team that really thrives after, they get going on the ground, And I know, obviously, every football team does better when they run the football. Of course, that's just a general rule of thumb. But I think this incarnation of Utah football really needs that running game to kind of spark them and kind of get that play action going, so you can hit Keithy and Kincaid and all these different guys. Like, you need the defense to respect Thomas so that you can get that 8 to 10 yard intermediate route going. And this is, again, not to go backwards here, but that's why we pointed out with BYU what Boise State's defense was doing, because in that game, BYU wasn't really running the football. So what do you have? I mean, you have a situation where the defense doesn't really have to respect you in any one area of the game, whereas Utah versus USC's defense was lost. I mean, USC's defense was, you were running on them, you were passing, you were dominating them.
Yeah, USC tried to stop the run, and then they tried to stop the pass, and then they didn't try to stop anything.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately why they won the game.
Which is why you got 40 dropped on you. That's just how it works.
Yep. All right, let's get some more of your comments. If Romney is available versus Baylor, do you play him? Oh, I again will just say it. Baylor Romney's your best quarterback. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And from what I understand, he should be fine for the Baylor game. Sean Mirzinski says they're beating USC. What a disgrace they are. Well, there you go. Kalani made the Kyle Whittingham decision to start Jaren Hall. Well, anyway. Ramiro says commenters questions coaching decisions quite a bit. I honestly think BYU gets a free pass, mainly from the media. I think that there are people in this town that are very reticent to criticize BYU. And I think you just need to call it for what it is.
It was a mistake.
This was a mistake to start Jaren Hall.
Yeah.
And I think that this is not, oh, gee, golly shucks. This is big-time college football.
Yeah.
And to me, guys need to be held accountable. And Kalani made a mistake. It's that simple. He's a guy that believes in big-time accountability. Kalani Sitake made a mistake.
And that's fine. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But let's not say, oh, well, we're the victim and we're little brother. You guys don't want to play little brother when you're signing Built Bar deals and you're going to the Big 12, but then when you make a mistake, you want to play little brother. So you can't have it both ways.
This is your first real adversity of the season. This is when we find out who BYU football is. This is when we find out what kind of team BYU is. Like, how do they handle the adversity? What's the dynamic in the locker room? How close is this team? Is it truly a brotherhood? Are they all going to get together around a couple of, metal trash can barrels and burn their Navy uniforms and never ever wear them again?
Why Navy? Why?
Never
Help
again.
Me.
Never, ever, ever again.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're Michigan football now wearing that Navy? No, you're not. You're BYU. Put the Royal on and let's get to work.
Never.
Douchebags.
Ever again.
Unbelievable.
The Blind Sportsman says, I'm right there with you, Monty. It's frustrating BYU gets a great record every year and then blows it against a team they should beat. Stop being nice to them. This loss was unacceptable.
Yeah.
Win the damn game. Exactly right.
Exactly.
Spencer says quarterbacks mismanagement is kind of a thing this year in the state. Yeah, I would agree with that. Tanner Plummer says, well, the BYU media would never ask those critical questions. No, I agree. They would not. They would not. I agree with that.